of experience, they could have significantly different views on what is an appropriate standard. I mean, it's been reported to us that somebody who had been certified for a year was remotely instructing somebody without any assistance on site to navigate the stairs. And so we've said, get the training out there. We'll develop an exam for an endorsement. The board will take a look at that. And then anyone who goes through the training and meets the competencies can apply for an endorsement. But we can't just throw things in that haven't been taught or tested. I do not believe, and I believe the board's 100% behind me on that.
One of the, I'm sorry, go ahead, Eileen.
I would just say what I think is very exciting is that the field is getting together to do a lot of work on this whole idea, but you're doing it in smaller groups. And so it would be great whether, you know, it's the AER O&M division or OMSA. It would seem to me OMSA is perfectly positioned to collaborate with AER, but to bring everybody together. And I think Chris's Google document is trying to do that, but bring everybody together to have a single conversation about this, move this forward, figure out how the training is done. And then we're happy to work with you, whether that's further modification or whether that's an endorsement. We think an endorsement could be a huge benefit, a digital badge that you could use with your signature to indicate that you've been trained and received an endorsement in remote instruction. I think would be fabulous.
Kevin, do you want to throw in there?
Yes, my hand was up in case you guys couldn't see me. I couldn't figure out how to do that on you know, like usually there's a little hand erase. So the one thing I also, thank you, Kathy, I think you said it beautifully. And I appreciate the explanation because that helps everybody. We've been at this for a long time. Another thing I want to make sure, what I'm really excited about this group with the new O&M Association is we got a whole bunch of colleagues out there that aren't necessarily certified. You know, and so we talk a lot about ACVRIP, ACVREP, and obviously you guys know I'm a huge proponent of certification, and I was doing the chair stuff with SME and was honored to do it. But we also have a lot of colleagues out there that they may not be getting the same information. We need to make sure that everybody is getting this, and it's a real opportunity to unite the field. I saw earlier today, Chris posted a live document in Google. I'm super excited to go and look at that. I love how there's anonymity involved so people can put ideas out there regardless of their experience, and the field's going to move forward. But I just think that we need to keep in mind that there's a whole bunch of us out there, not just the folks that are certified in ACVREP or NOMC. And I really hope that this O&M Association could really tackle that in conjunction with AER and have some real leadership and a name behind it. So that was just my quick thought.
Kevin, stay live for a sec. Your thought is, could you define a little bit better how you think OMSA could help in this process? First of all, let me just say to everybody else, OMSA is open to COMSs, NOMCs, people who have never gotten certified but work in the field, people who've been certified but have lapsed, and guide dog folks who are educated in a different way. So this is a very broad umbrella group. Just to clear that up. Go ahead, Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate the kickback, and I think you just stated exactly why I think OMSA is in a great position to do this, because you do have the guide dog folks in here, you do have consumers in here, you have the right mix of people, and I just think it's a good thing to move forward with. AER, I think the O&M division there could really put some good stuff forward. I know there's a new board coming in. I'm not sure if Joanne's on this call. I know Chris is, and you're going to be, you know, the past chair, right, Chris? I believe, yeah, he's shaking his head. So I just think that having a name behind it is going to is going to carry a lot more weight than just little smatterings of people. Like folks were saying, oh, Arizona AER put something out, a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, but then nobody knew where it went. We need a home for it. And we just need some ownership to be taken, because right now everybody's reinventing the wheel, because right now we've got, AER O&M division doing it. You guys are hosting some calls. We've got university folks doing something, and then there's a group headed up by Bill Kohler and Amy Parker and Mary that's working on it. So right now, nobody knows where to go. And so I just think it's time to just get everybody united. I don't know the how. I just want to make the comment. I just think that this association, I think, is the furthest reaching in terms of the breadth of people. There's a lot of folks in the VA, in this association. That's another group. I mean, this is everybody. I mean, you call it kids to the elderly and schools to agencies and VAs. So, and not to forget about our guide dog folks.
That's exactly why we started the organization. So thank you very much. Comments from Eileen. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, and then Joanne.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. First of all, we do not have consumers as part of this organization. They have to be orientation mobility instructors, either NOMCs or COMS, or certified by there's several who have state certification, and then guide dog instructors, and some people who do not, their agency doesn't require them to have certification, and they're still practicing. So we welcomed all those that were providing O&M services. The other issue, though, that I think is, so obviously the endorsement could only go to the COMSs, which is fine because the majority of the members are COMSs, but that isn't all representative of our group, our association. The other thing, though, that is really important is that as we are talking about different things, we really have different ideas of what people should be and should not be doing. And some of the issues that have concerned me are the fact that we're recommending people use systems and devices that have not been developed or proven to be good instructional methods for teaching orientation and mobility. So we're putting one another at a risk when we say pick up your iPhone and go out and film somebody, because the iPhone wasn't developed for that. So if something would really be happen, first of all, I don't think it's a good method of how we should go about teaching. It's not a good strategy. But if something would happen, the liability is extreme. And it's not only the extreme just for the one purpose, but it could jeopardize the whole profession. So we have to be pretty clear that there's a lot of risk in recommending things. I know Radio Shack isn't around anymore, but maybe Best Buy equipment and stuff like that. There's a risk in doing that, and everybody should be aware of that. And so you have to be cautious about some of the things that we're trying, because we're testing to see if it is a good strategy, is a good technique. So going along back to what Kathy is saying, how can we get from this experimental period to a period where we can say this is a valid technique for doing what we want to do, and that the success not only in the presenting it in the instructional aspect, but the fact that people learned by doing it, that our students and our clients learned something. Not that we were just successful technology-wise, but that the result ended up in some value instruction. And we're still not there, I don't think, to be able to put all that together.
Two things very, very quickly. Chris, could you put up in chat the address of that document that you addressed, if you're willing to?
I will do that. And when there's
then after that, you're next. First Joanne, then you. Joanne, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, I was just unmuting. Just to mention that the O&M division is working with the working group to set up potential dates for a webinar. so that a lot of the information that was gathered by that group can be shared. So that's still very much in a emergent process, but we'll keep you informed of potential dates for webinars and when they're going to be presented. So that can be shared with a larger group.
Great. Thank you, Joanne. Chris, sorry.
And I'm sorry, I was just taking some notes so I wouldn't forget stuff, but I will put that in the chat momentarily.
Thank you.
Eileen, you had shared that we don't know, and that is true, but there are some people who do know more than we know. In terms of, I don't have anything physical to share at the moment, but I've been, let's say, it's almost like playing phone tag, but it's virtually, with Australia, because they have been implementing systems using a smartphone. I don't know if it's an iPhone or an Android phone, but they've been doing it. They've kind of, for years, been using a remote system to deliver instruction. So we can benefit from their experience and what they've learned, either that worked or that was a challenge. And I think it's important for us to kind of extend our feelers to say, hey, we'd like to learn from you all. We'd like to share what we have, but we'd also like to hear what you have, because now it's a global world. We have the ability to do that. The other thing is that with our development, we're literally stuck. I don't know if stuck's the right way to put it, but we're plopped into a scenario that's much like a war. I never lived through a world war, but I can only imagine when all the veterans came back that were wounded, the soldiers, they had to figure it out on the fly. They didn't have best practices to go on. They had to go with developing and figuring it out. And it had to go through Avon Old Farms, and it had to go into Heinz, and it had to go through those stages. And that's what we're in. We're going to literally make mistakes. But I don't think we have the luxury of time to do it another way. We have to go through some of those mistakes, but hopefully with some risk assessment. And in terms of ACVREP, one of the things that is there in just a little smidgen of a way is when the Code of Ethics got updated, we did now include some things about telepractice or different delivery methods. From listening to presentations just even today, and I'm back in Texas again, it sounds like the education agency within Texas for the state is going to be requiring now two sets of goals for every student. You have one goal that's an IEP goal that you do showing up face-to-face. At the same time, you're submitting your remote goals. So those are goals that when the student can't be there, either because of how things are right now, or because people come to school and then they have to go home, or because of a hurricane or some other thing, you will always now, not just during the pandemic, but always be submitting two sets of goals, one for in-person and one for when you can't be there. So I don't think this is going to go away. I think this is something that's going to continue for the foreseeable future, even beyond the pandemic. They're just new areas we have to adjust and adapt and evolve to.
And I agree with that, Chris, totally. But what I'm saying is that I don't know that right now you're going to get a consensus within the field. So we have to work through some of those. And believe me, back in the census, in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, there weren't consensus in the field either. So it's not an unusual thing, but it's something that we have to be open to hear both sides of how people are dealing.
Another aspect of this, and I think this, obviously we didn't get to the bottom of that one, and we're not going to get to the bottom of anything, I don't believe, not in this meeting, but another aspect of this, and I'd like to ask the other Eileen, not Sifferman, to discuss the internship problems that are going on, because we've got a generation, a short generation of O&M specialists in training who are having a great deal of difficulty getting internship sites and completing their education. And I think it's wonderful to have Kathy here again, because she plays, of course, a role in that whole discussion as well. Eileen Bischoff, yeah, go ahead.
Were you going to forget my name again, Lucas? Bischoff.
Thank you, got it.
So I'm from Florida State University, and I've been having conversations. I mean, I've had several conversations with other university folks who run the O&M programs or who are the instructors for O&M, the methods courses, and we seem to be having similar challenges in that two issues that we're facing. One is having to convince our states or our universities that face-to-face instruction is really important as we prepare O&M specialists. And the other one that's really the bigger challenge at this moment, most of us have been able to convince our universities that we need to move towards face-to-face or continue face-to-face instruction for O&M. But the bigger issue we're facing right now is that because there aren't many folks providing face-to-face services to students or to adults, we don't have many options for placements for O&M internships. So O&M internships are being canceled, or they are only they're only providing options for remote O&M internships. So I fear that we are about to lose several groups, several cohorts of O&M, of potential O&M specialists, because there's nowhere to place them to get their training and their internships. So there are opportunities for some, part remote, part face-to-face, but as school districts continue to close down in Florida or try to open with remote plans, I think some of those are even going to disappear. So it's going to be a problem going forward.
And could you clarify, maybe you and Kathy clarify what the relationship is between the O&M personnel prep programs and the certification process? I mean, what will happen to these people who can't, what's the plan? How are these people who have devoted, X amount of months to their education going to go forward? Meg, you have something there?
Kind of somewhat on this, but not on this. And one thing I haven't had discussion, the whole group in general, was O&M outdoor versus indoor instruction versus COVID. And we just got permission from my state to start a little bit of outdoor O&M in September. And I think it's because of the outdoor instruction that we were pushing, that we can do most of our stuff outdoors versus indoors, which is a higher risk for COVID than outdoors. And I guess I haven't heard that discussed at all in regards to providing direct orientation and mobility services outdoors, unlike a lot of other rehab services that need to be given indoors. And why that's, to me, a lower risk for O&M instructors to be outdoors with other precautions teaching versus providing services indoors. I don't know, I don't think that helps the program for the educational programs at the colleges, but.
So for the colleges, so what we're doing at FSU is we have moved some of the skills that we would typically teach indoors. Some of those basic O&M skills, we've moved them outside. Even using corridors like between two buildings, so that we have a somewhat enclosed space, but it counts as outdoors. So that's given me a little more leeway to meet with students. But once the students complete those methods courses, those blindfold classes, and they move on to internship, that's where it's becoming difficult to get them to that next step, because schools are not providing face-to-face, and if they are, they're not providing enough hours of face-to-face instruction for these interns to complete their internships. Schools also don't want extra bodies in their buildings right now. So when you're talking about working with children, it's hard to convince schools to take interns and agencies, not many agencies in this area are providing face-to-face instruction.
This is Kathy. What ACVRP has said in working with the universities, if someone is a student in a university program, they are able to, once they finish their coursework, they're able to take the exam without yet having completed their internship. So what some are electing to do while all of their coursework is very fresh in their mind is study for and take their exam. And while normally certification has a timeline on the amount of time you have from the time you pass your exam to apply for certification and complete the documentation, which is the clinical competency evaluation form, what we've said is we'll work with each applicant on an individual basis to extend that timeline as they need. Some of the testing centers are open, not all of the testing centers are open. So we're working with each applicant on a case-by-case basis to extend timelines as needed so that they can complete the process and aren't canceled out by not staying within the normal timeline, because these are not normal times.
I think that's great, personally. It's
Yeah,
really a
thanks.
nice adjustment.
Yeah, that's good information. Thank you, Kathy. I have a question, and you can kick me out of here, Lucas, if I need to ask this at some other point so that I don't take over the whole meeting. But
I don't know who you are. How can I continue?
When you mention about the endorsement, Kathy, is there any talk of, or maybe Kevin has heard of this also, but is there any talk of maybe having some kind of a temporary certification or a different endorsement where it's not necessarily that you are endorsed, or, and then you have that stamp to provide remote instruction and you receive that training, but to where maybe you are certified to provide only certain skills, like maybe more basic O&M skills, that would require less face-to-face instruction or internship?
No, we haven't considered that. But one thing that we have offered, because some students had already started their internships, but simply weren't able to finish, but we're pretty well along in the process. What we have said is if employers would hire someone who has not yet, if certification is required and they would consider hiring someone who's yet certified, we would be very comfortable with offsite supervision, allowing them to complete their internship at their place of employment. And if an employer said, well, we would allow that, but we want to know that somebody has passed the exam, we've talked about a form of a letter that would indicate that someone has taken and passed the certification exam, but they haven't completed all the requirements yet to be certified. We can do something like that. But we don't feel that it's appropriate to lower the standard of what it requires to be certified. And it would be very difficult to, or it wouldn't be as valuable to have some type of provisional certification. But I think we can address that issue, and we're happy to talk with and work with potential employers. One applicant, a student from another university, and I don't think it was an O&M, but in one of the other practice areas, had done all but maybe the last 50 hours of internship at that placement, but then it closed down, but he had a position offered in another location and went from on-site supervision to off-site supervision, is finishing the last 50 hours actually as someone employed under off-site supervision. So we think that that's where we can work with, and we're happy to talk to or work with employers to kind of help this type of thing be effective. Kevin, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, the one thing, and again, because I'm no longer the chair of the SME, you guys might need to check with Laura Bozeman and Erica Irke because they are now the co-chairs. But the one thing that we did hear a little bit of talk about before the end was the internship situation and what are other related professions doing for it? Because, you know, I will tell you, I personally take 3 interns every summer for a summer program. I've had TVI interns, CADIS interns over and over again. And there's just no way that a lot of folks coming out of some of the, especially distance-based programs who have never had their physically in the same room as a kid or an adult who is blind, would they be ready to move into it without an internship experience? That's my own personal experience from it. But in terms of, I think, Eileen, you asked a question of like, have we heard anything? Yeah, there's been some rumblings because there are some employers desperately wanting to get potential candidates certified because they say, well, my state agency or my board or whatever wants us to hire certified people, you know, and what the SME basically had said, different people talking is, we understand that, but if you require certification and they're not certified, then you either have to make some kind of, you know, decision to hire non-certified, or you need to wait until they're certified. So I just don't think there's going to be a good answer to it, because again, I wouldn't support anybody bypassing a certification unless they did what Kathy said through remote supervision. But I feel for you guys. Like I'm looking, you know, I know Justin, you guys have a new program opening up. And there's probably some other folks on here that are university people. I'm sure you guys are in a really tough spot. And, you know, I think a lot of us is O&Ms. And I think, again, that's where I think OMSA is another potential part of the strategic plan, is to help people understand what it means to be a remote supervisor and to help supervise interns, because the more people we have available to supervise, the more folks that we can supervise, which means we grow the profession and we get some really good candidates that come from it. So I think Chris, maybe Joanne, help me out here. There's been talk about, is there a way to get some kind of an endorsement or a credentialing to say, hey, I've passed said modules to be a supervisor. I understand what it takes. I understand the, you know, the standards. I understand my job. And I think that's something else, maybe 8 year, I don't know. But my concern is just getting people in the profession without an internship. I think that is so scary, so scary.
This is Chris. I have a quick question. I'm sorry, my internet dropped out for a moment, so I don't know what I missed. And this may have already come up, but to some extent, we've got the cart before the horse. Who makes the modules? Who does the training? It's terrific. If ACVREP wants to offer some type of extension to the certification, or but who's going to provide this training? Who's going to develop it? I know that it takes a lot of time to build these, to create the videos, to do the training, and for a lot of people that are just going to be spinning their wheels, that are, let's just say, mid-career professionals who they're already through all their university training, they're through all the things that they thought they were going to need for certification. They need to be able to jump into a course in the evening because they got their day jobs, because many of their employers aren't going to give them time in their day to attend the training. But who's going to make it?
Well,
Great question, man.
This is Kathy. One of the things, I think that's a perfect role for OMSA. And, you know, ACVREP has never been the training organization because, again, it requires the content experts to develop the education. And so we're not saying that we have an answer to that, but this group of 38 wanted us to include things in certification to mitigate an issue of insurance liability. That is not why you include things in education or in certification that people have not been educated on or demonstrated they can do or tested on. That is not a good reason to include that in an existing certification. So we don't have an answer to who is going to provide the training at this time, versus if this is going to be an ongoing condition and not simply a short-term issue to deal with COVID, then I would expect that over time, the universities will build these strategies into their educational programs. But in the short term, you know, again, we don't provide the training. We're willing to develop an endorsement if the training is developed.
And just from a real world perspective, the universities, and I'm not a university person, so I'm talking way outside my box, but it seems the universities don't have any time to do that anymore because they're so impacted with all the other things that they have to teach, like how do we teach technology that never existed, and we still have all these courses that we can't let go of, and our administrators want to let us add more courses. What seems to be the stopgap or who's filling that role are places, I'm going to use Perkins as an example with the CVI endorsement. It's outside agencies that, to some extent, TSBVI, but all of their training is offered for free. And at the moment, there isn't any endorsements offered. But places like Perkins, who offers some of these content modules that are developed, and then professionals go and seek them out, those that can. That's what's been filling that role. I don't know that the universities have the ability at the moment to add more to their plates.
You know, and I don't know that either. I will tell you though that Salus did develop a CVI course. So they have a certificate and an educational course at graduate level for CVI. Whether anybody can do that now with all the issues that everyone is addressing, from the universities right on down to the practitioners relative to COVID, I don't know. It's just not the ACVRP role at this time.
Evan, yeah.
Yeah, one other thing, Chris, I think you bring up a great point. Once again, you always bring up great points. You have a great knack about doing that. One other point I wanted to bring up is, you know, there's a lot of us that were very concerned about so many university programs that didn't teach Braille to O&M specialists, you know, and there was a group of us, we at a number of conferences, we had a lot of discussions about this, you know, we published a paper on it. And this is a great example of, you know, we got usually a lot of O&Ms will rely on a TVI or a Braille material specialist to get the Braille on a map for a kid to use. But now we're in this pandemic situation where they don't have access to a TVI, but somehow they got to get this kid Braille. But the reason I'm sharing that experience is because the university is like, wait a minute, if we had to add a Braille course, we don't have time for it. We don't have that in our grant funding. And we're like, can't we just come up with a module, like just a 1 credit hour, you do it on your own time, sometime before you graduate? And there was a ton of pushback. So I think even as we talk about the telepractice and the different delivery systems are going to have to incorporate it somewhere. But we're going to have to, we, meaning the profession, not just OMSA, are going to have to partner with the universities to figure out how to do that. And then AER is going to have to even consider modifying their accreditation standards or, you know, talking about the CEC DVI stuff. So I think, again, these are wonderful discussions to have, and it's going to force the profession to move some of these things forward.
I think it's Zifferman.
Yeah, regarding the Braille issue, it's done, Kevin. The Accreditation Council of AER has put it in the standards, and it's a requirement for the university O&M programs to provide that. So that's moved forward. So that's a plus. And I think a lot of, if I recall right, as I was, when I used to supervise interns, the universities, most of them do have some type of protocol in order to become a supervisor of interns. Is that not true, Justin? Eileen?
You mean the on-site person, the comms?
Yeah, the comms who becomes the clinical supervisor for your students.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, we kind of follow what ACVRP wants, which is that they're certified O&M specialists and that they've had at least 3 years experience. And then after that, I just kind of base it off of personal judgment, like if I know that person is going to be a good supervisor. But those are the only real qualifications that we look at.
I think in one of the reviews that I did, there was a handbook for, Susan Langdorf could approach that too. There was a handbook for supervisors of internships from one of the universities.
Joanne, yeah, go ahead.
I know when I supervised an intern that was attending Western Michigan, there was a very thick handbook that had to be reviewed. I'm sure other universities have similar handbooks. And I think it's a requirement that there has to be a handbook as part of the accreditation process. So it was definitely written out in detail what your requirements were and what the interns requirements were.
Thank you, Joanne. I think this has been a terrific discussion. I would like, I have, to ask Eileen Sifferman, as president, to extend an invitation to whoever you see fit to come to our next board meeting and discuss this and see how OMSA can help further this discussion if she thinks that's a good idea, and I hope she does. But I'd also note that there are a lot of, this is, in this giant game of tic-tac-toe or whatever it is, there are a lot of people who are as black squares we have not heard from yet. And I would like to invite those people to throw their hats in the ring and issue, like Michael Byington, for example. There's a square we haven't heard from yet. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, thank you very much. I've learned a lot just listening to all of this and didn't know if I really had anything I wanted to add, but a couple of thoughts that I had, and Kathleen can elucidate what I'm saying and fill in any blanks I have. I recall when I went through my internship that the understanding was that the internship would be completed in a period not exceeding 1 semester. I don't recall if that is written anywhere in the ACVREP standards. But I think that one thing that might address the issue of development of interns is perhaps that the amount of time that one can take to complete the required number of internship hours could be increased. I could see someone who, for example, was a TBI and working on their comms, in addition, being willing to let the internship last an entire year instead of a semester, if that was what was going to give them the true number of hours of internship experience that they needed, and that would not reduce quality. I also think that when we talk about the amount of Braille that a comms need to have, that the issue that we have to grapple with there is that certification as a Brailleist is certainly in and of itself an accomplished field and its own certification. And I don't think anyone is suggesting that a comms go to that level. But we've got a situation right now where a lot of the programs are training to a level of grade 1 Braille, or basically just the alphabet, perhaps a little bit more. But the ADAG says that all Braille signage should be in grade 2 literary Braille. And now I assume that the that the Access Board will upgrade that to specify UEB. And I do think that the issue that we grapple with is that if you require a little more Braille, you're just going to have a situation where the Braille hawks out there, the real Braille advocates, are saying that you're going to weaken the field because you're going to allow a comms to take on doing Brailing that they may not really know how to do well. And it's a question of quality within the field of Braille. And thank you. Those are the only thoughts that are worth sharing that I came up with out of today's.
Thanks, Michael. I'd like to invite those of you in black squares to speak if you have something that you'd like to contribute to this. Your thoughts are valuable to us. Paul, are you uncloaking for a reason?
I just realized that the camera was off the whole time. I've been listening and watching you guys, and I just looked over and I was like, "Hey, there's no me." Anyway, what Chris had said earlier about the digital badges or whatever, I looked up on Perkins because I had looked into. I'm a tinkerer. I like fixing things, and they offer a certification or a micro credential for Brailler repair. and never got around to it because it had to be done on site. And anyway, but on their website, they're called micro credentials, and there's a whole bunch of them, including the Roman scale on CVI. But again, I'm listening to everything. I don't have too much to add to this because I'm still fairly new to this, but 5 coming up on 6 years in. But this is something brand new. I'm not saying anything that you haven't heard before, but this is a brand new. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're reinventing the tools to invent the wheel. So, and that's my supervisor had came up with that, but she's right. So anyway, that's it. Lovely hearing from you guys.
Thanks, Paul. Rose.
Hi. Well, I'm going to come from a little maybe different perspective. I had to get my calculator out. I've been a comms for 38 years and I've been a TVI for 45 years. And I'm just a peon. I've never really gotten involved with stuff. I know a lot of people, but I'm just kind of on the front lines. And I think I totally understand. I mean, I've gone through a university program. I've been a level supervisor, but when you're out in the field, and maybe some of you, all of you are, or you have been, or whatever, but I think so many people are out there, you talk about letting them take longer, which I think is a good idea, to have their internship, but people need to work because they need money. People, at least TVIs in our area, are getting hired in February before they graduated in May, not to start working, but to start working in May. I mean, it's so tight out there that people are desperate, but then when they hire you, nobody knows what we do, no matter how much we try to, some people maybe do, but I mean, I've never run into anyone that did. No matter how much we try to educate them, and I've had some supervisors learn and be educated, but because it was who they were, not because of how we did it. And so you're just kind of out there dangling. And I think a lot of people feel that way. I think in an earlier group I was on, someone suggested or asked, I've been having a terrible day and it got worse when I got home, and I don't mean to bring that to this, but I mean, so take what I'm saying with a bigger grain of salt than maybe normal. But people are out there just dangling by themselves a lot of times, not in a big city. I mean, I'm in Illinois. You go to Chicago and they've got colleagues. I have one other person who is a first year O&M and she's a sixth year TVI. We never have time to talk to each other because we have to be out there. And I'm not talking about today. We probably have a little more time today because of no one knows what's going on with COVID. But I know, just having been around for 45 years, we often talk about we need this stuff, so the universities need to provide it, but you can't have like a 6 or 10-year program to get your degree, and that's what it comes up with because all this stuff is important. And so and I agree with Kevin that if you've never seen a person live that's blind or visually impaired, boy, you can't be certified. I mean, again, 45 years, and I remember my first year out in the field, and it was crazy. I mean, I went to my principal every day and cried, and now this is in the 70s, and went to a bar and drank because I was like, I got no clue. I go to the principal and say, I got no clue what I'm doing. I should quit. I'm not helping these kids. I didn't learn any of what you guys are throwing at me. This is at a school for the blind. So I think, I know this is a different group and you're looking at bigger pictures and you're looking at trying to come up with good ideas and stuff. So I just wanted to throw in, a little bit from another side that I know people are so stressed, not right now even, before COVID, that they don't want to take on a student teacher because it's hard to do. And I don't know, those are just some ideas and some thoughts. And if you had any questions that you want to ask me, because I'm still out here right now, and if not, that's fine, but I just wanted to throw in, a little bit different perspective. And I've been a supervisor. I've been in a doc program. I never finished it, but I was in a doc program. So, I mean, I understand research is important and I understand we need to do best practices, but we're in places where there's no money. They won't give us stuff. So I've had to do in March 7 different districts. And I had to deal with whatever the parents could do. And some of it was like my iPhone and doing FaceTime. Well, somebody said you can't do FaceTime because it's not, I don't know, it's not secure. I'm like, well, you know what? I care about my kids. I really don't care about you guys. And I'm going to do it. And, you know, fire me if you want. I don't care. And I know that's a terrible attitude, but it's also like, you got to step up and you got to do something. And I have a question to throw out that possibly you guys could answer now, but maybe not, but maybe in the future. When I was in my doc program, when I was already doing O&M, so I went back from my doc program, I had a colleague that was constantly worried about liability. Now this is many, like at least 35 years ago. And so in my doc program, when I took a law class, that's what I did a project on, to see about, you know, how many people have been sued in orientation mobility for, you know, not providing correct or right services. And at that time, but again, this is 35 years ago, there were like 1 or 2, maybe 5 at the most, never against them. It never went against them, and it went with best practices. So it's like, what would someone else come into the courtroom and say in our field about best practices? And I'll be quiet because I could yammer on forever. But anyway, I just want to throw a couple things in to think about.
Well, that was a worthwhile uncloak. Good job. Thank you. Any responses from we have a pretty expert group here. Any responses from them or more people in the black zones at the bottom of my screen? Joanne.
I'll take an idea at it. I think a lot has to do with the scope of practice. And when you're talking about liability and you're talking about your insurance, what's listed and what duties did you list? I think Bill Kohler touched upon this last week, that if it's not listed in your insurance and you go outside the box, so to speak, then you can get into a very gray area. So, and if I messed up on that, please someone else fill in that information, but that was my understanding. It also has to do with a risk assessment. You know, you have to make good judgment calls.
Thanks, Joanne. Chris.
Not so much about anything having to do with liability, more about just bringing folks that are presently in the university, trying to get them employed because of the needs. There are some places like Texas, for instance, where you are required to be a comms in order to provide instruction. There is no emergency credentialing. But that might be something that's necessary as we move forward, because we have teachers who are retiring out of, I don't want to get COVID and I don't want to die, so I'm just going to retire now. And it's going to leave some big gaps. And then we also have the gap that's happening with university students who may not be able to get there soon enough to fill those roles. So we're all going to be in a bubble really quick. That's just reality. So maybe working with state agencies, I don't know how this would all work, but to have some guidelines so that, in other words, you're hired on and you're able to get paid, but you're not considered quote unquote official until you complete all those areas of the competencies. But there's likely going to be some areas of competencies that's going to be very, very difficult to complete, especially with the number of people we're trying to push through our system, through all the universities. So when I was in Maryland, you could get hired at the Maryland School for the Blind and have, I think it was 12 months to complete your ACVREP certification. So that would be a great example of, yes, you can get hired now and begin working, begin getting paid because they need to get paid to continue eating, and still be getting that direct hands-on experience with a team of other professionals, or however that might work, who can support you as you develop those areas of the competency you couldn't get while you were at the university level. Those are things we're probably going to have to look at just out of necessity.
I think, if I remember right, Eileen Bischoff, this is a 1-hour meeting. Am I correct in that? I'm getting a yes sign from Eileen Sifferman. Eileen, Sifferman, I sent you a note. I don't know if you saw it. I'd like to just, this has been wonderful, way out of my depth, and I'm sure glad you guys are all here to discuss it. I think those of us down at the bottom of the screen are feeling the same way I am. It's like, this is a little bit outside of my comfort zone. What is in my comfort zone is, I just want to mention it to you because I don't know if there's an easy way for you to know it otherwise, is that the guide dog programs are starting to move. Leader Dog has just finished, and my understanding is their second class. Seeing Eye just began their first today. So things are starting to free up. Guiding Eyes is doing home placements, I believe. I don't know if they've started an in-house program yet. California, of course, and Oregon have been much harder hit more recently, so they're a little bit behind. Will Henry is here from Guide Dogs for the Blind, and he can address that if you ask him. I know they're also looking at home placements fairly early. So just so you know that there is movement in the guide dog world. Things are starting to happen. At Seeing Eye, we're fortunate to be in the New Jersey, New York, Connecticut grouping of states that have operated in a coherent manner. And so we're able to pull some people from those regions and serve them. There are a lot of states that, because of the 2-week quarantine that New Jersey's imposed, it becomes very difficult, but we're working on figuring it all out. So just to let you all know. Okay, Eileen, Sifferman, do you want to close us out? Do you have something you'd like to say on this? Go ahead.
I think we have a lot more discussion to go. I think as some of the support, and I was pleased to hear Kathy say that they would work with individuals and work with agencies to do what Chris was just talking about, what Michael talked about, extending and sort of doing modifications to their internship, especially those individuals who could complete it while they're in employment. So that will help, I think, some of the students coming out of the university programs. The board, the OMSA board, will meet on Wednesday, and we have a pretty full agenda as it is. And so we will probably discuss and move forward again with our Monday mobility sessions, and maybe add some different rooms to it with addressing some of these other issues that you all brought up. And
I was also surprised to hear OMSA mentioned as an organization that could help in creating content, which kind of knocked me on my tail. But I would love to hear more discussion about that at a future date. Thank you all so much.
Content for what?
That's kind of what I wondered. So,
So I have a question. This is Meg. Sorry, because I missed the afternoon session because I thought I was automatically registered, but you have to register yourself every Monday. Is that right?
Susan Langendonk is here. She's running the registration. She's at the bottom. Susan?
I didn't realize I had to re-register, so that's why I missed it. But I just want to double check on
that.
Yeah,
this is Susan. We've only had 2 meetings. We weren't really sure how it was going to happen. We are starting to have a group of people who do want to be on every week. If you want to be on that, and I've been mostly reaching out to people, or a few people said, can I do this without registering every week? We've had probably, Meg, over 100 people. And of those 100 people, and that's total, there have been maybe about 50% repeats. And then of each one, we had, I think, nearly 70 people register for today's, but only 40 some signed in. So I don't think it's going to work for everybody to get an invitation every single week, because a lot of people just aren't even following up on it. But I will put you on the recurring one.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't realize I didn't register. I sent that out to everybody, and then I went to it. I'm like, oh, I had to register. So
yeah, because it's a different link every week. We had so many shares last week, and we have a lot of people, we had no idea who they were, and we are screening to make sure everyone is an orientation and mobility specialist for the Monday, Mobility Monday.
Chris?
I'll get you on the list.
Chris
Just
Tab?
real- Thank you. When OMSA meets, the board meets on Wednesday, one thing to consider in your discussion is the OHOA modules. I think is open hands, open access. It's for people who are deafblind, but there are a set of modules that are to train interveners, and that might make for a good prototype of what type of module to do for having O&M endorsements. It was just something that was a very developed plan for video modules.
And who's doing open hands, open access?
I think it was through NCDB, the National Center on Deafblindness, but I will try to find that and email it to you, Eileen.
Okay, we've received an invitation to work with the National Center. I'll share with the board, and APH is putting something together too. So there are lots of entities that are working on that. Joanne, just so you know that Bill Kaler and Mary Taylor went, and they're doing their own webinar. So I don't know if they're going to follow through with AER, except that AER can get them credits for it. So there are a lot of things going on. So watch your emails, and lots of things coming up. So, but there's no coordinated effort on that. I'm pleased that they've asked us to weigh in on that, and I'll share it with the board to see what we want to do. But yeah, that's
Joanne? Joanne?
Hi. I know that Bill's doing his own webinar, but he was also interested in presenting the same webinar on multiple occasions.
He's going to get on multiple occasions with his own, but what they don't have is a Ripple program, and people are asking for credit. And so that's why they were going to pursue AER and the O&M division, because you have a Ripple.
I understand.
Also, just as an aside, I think Chris probably, I got a note from Kat, I don't know if she's still here or not, yeah, she is, saying that the link, I put up the link to the seminar on the 27th of August, the webinar, and Kat let me know that that link does not appear to work. You might, whoever is working on that with Mary, could you guys?
That's because it's timed, you have to register for it.
Right, but what Kat is saying is that the registration link doesn't work.
If you,
it might be closed. Yeah.
It's not because I registered, but what I did was I took the text from what Lucas had posted, and I did a Google search for the text, I think, and it brought up the information so that I could register. So it's not closed yet, but the link wasn't. The link might be specific to one individual, which might have been for Lucas, for instance.
I could pull it off Facebook. So.
Oh, okay. I think I just did a Google search. I just copied some of the text, and something came up that allowed me to click to get to the registration, and then I immediately received a response.
All right. You good, Kat?
Well, I can't find it doing what Chris just recommended. I'm not finding the.
I will look for it while we're finishing up and see if I can get it in the chat before we go.
Super. We'll leave it open. That's fine. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody. One of the nicest things about this is seeing you all, except all you people who are blacked out. Unblacken yourself so we can see you for a minute anyway. It's nice. Rachel, there you go. It's great to see everybody. Rachel, how are you? We're a community.
Sorry, Lucas. Hopefully the link that's in there now will be effective for everyone. And also I put the OHOA module link. So I don't think it lets you watch the videos. You probably have to go through NCDB to watch the videos of the OHOA modules, but at least it will give you some idea of the depth of thought that they put into creating those.
That registration link does work for me now. Thank you, Chris.
Great. Yep.
All righty. And the rest of you must be in your pajamas. Okay, good to see y'all. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Great night.